This is a review of the Anker Power Core 16,000 milliampere hour battery. It's a two-port device that's rated to output 4 amps of portable energy simultaneously to charge your devices. Inside the box, you'll find a brief instruction manual. You'll find the battery itself, which weighs in at 10.79 ounces. You'll find a charging cable that's a micro USB on one end and a USB on the other end. This charging cable is 23 inches long. You'll also find a nice carrying bag. This battery comes with an 18-month warranty and it's rated at 16,000 milliampere hours. The battery itself has a matte finish so it doesn't show fingerprints. On the end of the battery, you'll find 2 USB ports that are used for output power. They're rated at 5 volts DC and they're supposed to be able to supply 2 amps apiece. In my testing, they weren't quite that good. Here is the charging input port, and you can see it here. And this is where you plug in the cable to charge the battery. These ports are also supposed to be IQ ports and detect what type of device they're attached to, but I had some trouble that they stopped charging my iPad Air about halfway through the process. So that's one negative I found. On the side here, you'll find the power on button, and you have to press this to turn it on. You'll see 4 LEDs light up. Each LED represents roughly 25% of power. So there's 25, 50, 75, and 100%. And if you want to start charging your device after you plug it in, you have to press the button. The outputs of the battery itself are surge protected, and they're also short circuit protected for your safety. We did extensive testing with this battery. We actually used a milliamp hour meter and a milliwatt hour meter. That's to verify that the output of the battery was what was specified. To be honest with you, the tests were kind of average. Basically, I charged an iPad Air 3,540 milliamp hours and measured 17,968 milliwatt hours of energy that passed through this small watt meter and into my tablet. I then charged an iPad Air 2 and I used 6,447 milliamp hours of energy. That equaled 32,747 milliwatt hours. If I combine those, and I also added 40 milliampere hours of energy required to power this watt meter while I used it, I only got a capacity of 10,128 milliampere hours, or roughly 63.3% of the battery's capacity. That's below average. I would have expected at least 70%. 63.3% makes this about a 4-star product. I also had one other problem. At one point I was charging my iPad. The most current I could ever get out of a device, out of one of these ports, on iPads that were virtually dead, was 1.47 amps. And yet they're rated to be up to 2 amps. I never achieved that. At one point, I was charging an iPad Air, and the current actually dropped to 0.75 amps, and my iPad Air stopped charging. If I hadn't been doing a test and checking the battery every 30 minutes or an hour, I would never have noticed that. That's not very good performance from an IQ port. Here you can see the charge rate I put into a iPad Air. 3,540 milliamp hour of energy, and it recorded that on a register which I kept on this watt meter. Here you can see that I have charged an iPad Air 2, 6,447 milliampere hours of energy, and that charged the iPad up to about 95%. I recorded the 2 different sets of data of the milliamp hours that I withdrew out of the battery. So the numbers are pretty well spoken. They're right there on the meter itself. Normally this battery would be a 4-star because of its 63.3% performance. I was a little disappointed that the iPad Air dropped out of charging. That makes it a 3-star. So I'm stuck between the 2 different variables of the performance. It's really a 3.5-star device. I'm going to give it 3 stars. I don't like the fact that it stopped charging. If somebody expects to get up in the morning and have their tablet charged up, they're going to expect to see it done, and it didn't happen. It would not have happened. And I had to unplug the unit and actually get it going again to make it start charging again. This review is done by JJ CEO. I'd like to tell you that I received a sample for test and evaluation, and I didn't promise a review, but I promised if I gave one, it would be fair and honest.